We call this storyline the Worldsoul Saga.
All right, all right. So this was the announcement that happened during BlizzCon. They've now announced this Worldsoul Saga idea for World of Warcraft, where it's 3 expansions being released in what they call a rapid-fire deployment mode, which essentially, as far as I understand it, is going to be probably at the same cadence that they already do, which is pretty impressive. Once a year, having these drops, and then they have multiple drops in between the bigger drops. And it's interesting because he says they're going to be speeding things up. So I think a lot of people are making the assumption that this is going to be 3 mini expansions all tied into one, but it could be 3 full ones, and they're just going all in because now they got bought by Microsoft, and maybe there's more additional funding that's being thrown in there to help do things bigger and better. And the big idea here, Metzen is on stage. He's back, and honestly, this is the only reason I'm even remotely, potentially, maybe possibly interested in what's coming up is because of his involvement and who he is as a storyteller. Because I am not a huge World of Warcraft fan. I have played World of Warcraft over the years, not a lot. I played the classic Wrath of the Lich King experience. I played classic when it launched for a few months. I played the classic Lich King experience up to the first few raids, and then I did retail for a little bit with Dragonflight. I went ahead and bought Dragonflight and played it for maybe I did about 3 months, and I went through I think the 3 expansions leading up to, because you can go through the expansions now and do like each one's got 25 30 hours of storyline content, and I very much played it as a single player RPG. I didn't do any of the MMO stuff. I didn't do any multiplayer stuff other than queuing up for some dungeons. I just played it as a single player RPG, and I had fun. But I made a big post earlier in 2023 about how I'm done with MMOs. I have no desire to be a part of that world anymore. I spent 25 years doing MMOs: EverQuest, EverQuest 2, Lord of the Rings Online, Star Wars: The Old Republic. I do play LOTRO and Star Wars: The Old Republic still, but I play them as single player RPGs. I don't do pretty much any group content. I'm somewhat interested in Dune Awakening because of the IP, but I don't like the fact that it's PvP, and I'm not a big MMO player anymore. I much prefer the single player and small co-op experiences like what we've gotten recently with games like, Baldur's Gate 3, and looking ahead to like Rogue Trader in these games where you can go in with, 2 or 3 of your friends and family and just have fun that way. So, the announcement that they've made that they're doing these 3 expansions as an overarching story, that's the part about this announcement that has me intrigued. It's not enough to make me go out and pre-order it. I'm not pre-ordering anything. I do own everything up to Dragonflight, because when I bought Dragonflight, it came as like an all-in-one. You get everything up to that. I think that's just the way they do it these days. But I probably only have a total of, if I had to estimate, I've got a total of maybe 8 to 9 months. Let's just say 9 months. I've got a total of 9 months that I have spent in World of Warcraft over the years. It's not like EverQuest 1 where I've got 7 years. Actually, more than that if you count all the progression servers. I've got more like 12 years in EverQuest 1. EverQuest 2 is about 7 years. I played Lotro and Stotor since they launched, so a decade plus on each of those games. But they aren't my mains. They're just games I dip into once every 18 months or so. I'll pony up and pay for like 3 months of VIP, and I'll clear all the story content that I haven't seen, and then I go off and do other stuff. And then the next time, I come back around in a year and a half or so and do it all over again. And I'll continue to do so for Star Wars: The Old Republic and Lord of the Rings Online until those games sunset, because I think they're great. They're great IPs. I like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, and even though those games are dated, they have a lot of fun. So this announcement, um, I'm definitely not a Blizzard fanatic. I don't play a lot of Warcraft. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about MMOs anymore. But I will say that there were several things here that I want to try to find it really quick. And it might be later on, it might be somewhere else in the presentation. Um, So the first one that they're dropping is called The War Within, and what intrigues me about this is that we're getting the Earthen as a playable race, which I think is really cool. I like playing dwarves. I do play elves primarily, but my tanks are always dwarves. With the Lich King Classic experience, my brother and I specifically on my channel here, there's a playlist for World of Warcraft Classic. My brother and I played a pair of dwarves for I think about 4 or 5 months together and had a lot of fun. Um, uh, the Earthen have always intrigued me, and the time that I have spent in World of Warcraft, the one part of the lore that has always fascinated me was the Titans and the Earthen and everything about the dwarves. And the fact that this entire uh, Worldsoul Saga is all about the Titans coming back. What is the planet? What's the giant sword in the planet? We get to, you get to in the War Within. You're going to be able to play. You're going to be able to unlock as an allied race the Earthen and actually play an Earthen, which are what the dwarves were before they became dwarves. Um, and the whole I forget the name of the second one. They're doing Midnight. It's called Midnight. So you've got War Within, and then they've got Midnight, and then they've got The Last Titan is the third one that's coming. And the idea that we're doing a Titan specific storyline is probably the thing that's got me interested in it from a single player storyline perspective. But here's the thing. World of Warcraft is very much the way I've played it in retail, the way I understand how retail works. It's very much like the other MMORPGs you play, like Star Wars, Old Republic, and Lord of the Rings Online, in that when I go in and play, I can clear the storyline for an expansion in 30 hours, 40 hours, and then I'm done. And then after that, usually you're waiting a year until the next expansion. And I'm doing way too many other things to main an MMO and keep a running subscription for a game that's going to slowly dole out content over the next, 12-month period where it's like, oh, there's going to be 3 dungeons coming in 3 months, and then 3 months later another couple of dungeons, and 3 months later a couple more dungeons. I have no desire to play that style. I very much like to play in the content drop way, which is you drop the content, I play through the storyline, awesome, I'll sub up for the time that it's there. Once it's done, I move on to other things. I'll circle back around when the next expansion is launched. But the thing here is that they're tying storyline content to the drops in between the expansions, so there traditionally is additional storyline that comes along, which is kind of the same way that Lord of the Rings Online does it, as well as Star Wars: The Republic. The difference between those two games being that, like, with Lord of the Rings Online, you can there's so it doesn't matter. The point I'm trying to get at is I'm intrigued in the storyline of the trilogy that they've just announced. I don't, like I said, it's not enough for me to go out there and pre-order the War Within right away. It's something where I'm like, okay, cool. I know that it's probably going to be late 2024 based on their usual cadence for expansion launches. So this is a end of next year type thing where I think usually they're sometime around October, November is when they traditionally drop, or at least with like I think as I recall, the classic launches have been around October, November, and the expansions are usually like a month before or after the classic drops, or at least that's how they've done it the past few years. I could be wrong on that, but I'm vaguely remembering that's the case. Um, so this not being in the near future, I'm sort of just kind of cataloging this as something that I'm intrigued about for next year. And I'm going to wait and see when we get closer to it what other additional information we have about this. Now, at this point in time, I can say that I am firmly in the camp of I don't really care about the multiplayer component at all. I don't care about the MMO at all. What I do care about is a fun single-player storyline experience where I can go in and have a really cool linear storyline with cutscenes and everything else, which World of Warcraft does a great job of with the retail experience. Shadowlands, Battle for Azeroth. I had great fun in those two expansions, playing through those leading up to Dragonflight, and then getting into Dragonflight. I had great fun. It was a lot of fun doing those storylines. And um, if this is something where I don't have a lot going on when the expansion is getting close, what I may end up doing is just doing a subscription, like a 3-month block of a subscription, and just seeing what I've missed between Dragonflight up to the War Within, and then through the War Within through that expansion, unlock the Earthen, and then see where we're at after that, and probably go back to playing other things while I wait for content drops, and then maybe 3 months before the what is it called, midnight drops. I'll pony up again for like 3 months, and I'll do the pre-launch stuff up to the launch, and then the most recent stuff. That's probably how I'll do it. But I will also say that I can't predict where I'm going to be as a content creator and streamer between now and the launch of the War Within and this entire um, arc that they're playing. Because my brother and I have had a long conversation about this, and just he and I together have done a lot of MMOs. I've been playing games a lot longer than he has because he's younger than I am. He's 13 years younger. Quick commercial break, everyone, to give a shout out to our first official guild officer, Bubalonia, as well as all of the guild champions, and of course, all of the members who help keep me on the air full time. To join as a member, simply click that join button below and pick your tier, but you can also support with SuperChats on any live stream or premiere, or SuperThanks on any upload or YouTube short. Don't forget the Discord. Let's get back to the video. I am done with the whole guild and toxicity of people and trying to manage people. If you've been around in my community for any length of time, we've done it all. I've been in the top 3 worldwide in EverQuest 2. I was in a top 5 guild in EverQuest 1. I've been the guild leader, raid leader for a long time in multiple games, and I just don't have any desire to do that anymore. I'm very much focused on me, myself, and I, and everything I'm doing with my channel, and Chris, and our homestead, and our cats, and our chickens, and everything we've got going on here. And my brother and I have no desire to manage people anymore. I did that for a long time. Out of my 25 years of playing MMOs, I would say probably 18 to 20 of those years were me being a guild leader and a raid leader and managing teams of up to 150 people. And I just don't want to deal with that anymore because I just don't have the time or the energy to deal with it. But I am intrigued by the idea of, if there's, I don't know, a static group of people that we can get together with and run through the storyline content with, 4 or 5, 6 people. Isn't it 5-man groups in World of Warcraft, I think? So like 4 or 5 people that we run together with over the course of. But here's the thing, though. I've done that before in the past, and invariably people dip out. You always end up with people who can't hang. They don't take it seriously. They can't make the schedule. They've other things crop up, and it's like, well, this is my job for me. So I take this very seriously. If I set a schedule for something, I'm going to stick to that schedule. The last static group we did for World of Warcraft Classic, it was supposed to last for like 8 months, and it didn't. I think we might have got 3 months out of it before this person dropped, and then that person dropped, and then this person stopped showing up, and suddenly it was my brother and I with one other person, and then eventually it was just like, well, there's no point in continuing because why if we're down to 3 people, and then I just don't want to get in that scenario again where I'm relying on flaky people who can't commit to actually doing something. But if we get to this point where there are people who are genuinely interested with the experience of the storyline, then who knows? We might actually do something fun, form a guild, and do something. But it would be a lot different than the way I've done it in the past because I don't have any desire to manage people anymore. So I'm intrigued by the storyline aspect of what Metzen is proposing. I will probably take a look when we get closer to the date of the launch of the War Within, but it's still a long way away from everything that I understand. And I mean, there's some intriguing things. The delving, I think is what it's called. Reputation is now shared. There are some really cool things coming to World of Warcraft with this expansion. Like I said, I want to wait until we get closer to the date to make a decision on it, but I am at least intrigued enough to make a video on it and say, it's a good idea. I mean, really what they're doing is what Final Fantasy XIV did, and they're taking this idea and they're kind of taking that concept and making it their way. They're doing what Final Fantasy XIV did with World of Warcraft, and it could be very successful for them. I think one of the big things here is getting older players to come back into the fold. Metzen talks about in this presentation about the next 20 years. He's like, we want this to be the beginning of the next 20 years of Warcraft. I think it's very ambitious. I think most of us, myself included. The funny thing is I'm going to sidetrack here for just a second. Most of us want World of Warcraft 2, right? I was literally making a tweet before I tuned into Asmongold's coverage of BlizzCon when I saw Chris Metzen making these announcements, and I actually deleted the tweet and was like, I'm going to hold off on that. But the tweet I was writing literally said, BlizzCon can't show me anything that really gets me interested in any of their products. The only thing that would get me interested in a new Blizzard product would be a World of Warcraft 2 or a new StarCraft game or a brand new IP, some sort of epic, I don't care if it's fantasy, science fiction, some sort of epic new game franchise. Um, and then I saw this and I went, I'm actually going to hold off on that a little bit because this actually sounds interesting. And now that Metzen is back in the fold, I do like him as a storyteller, and I think he's done some really cool stuff over the years. I love the Earthen lore. I love the Titan lore. And considering these three expansions are all about the Titans and the Earthen and the history of Azeroth, what is Azeroth to the Titans? They're coming back. We're finally going to get the Titans. That actually makes me sit up in my chair and go, Sir, you have piqued my interest. Let's see if you can deliver on the goods. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop them down below. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I'll see everybody in the next one. Stay safe, everybody.